65,000 Indian graduate students in the United States. And unless they have a U.S. citizen or permanent resident who's willing to co-sponsor their loan, they're completely shut out from the United States loan market. Instead, they rely on student loans from India that are denominated in rupees. They have a parent or other relative guarantee their loan. They have short 5-year terms. And for all of that, they have the privilege of spending 10 to 14% in interest rates. International Student Assistance Corporation will work with investors to create funds to take out the high-interest student loans that these Indian graduate students have. In doing so, we'll take advantage of two things. First, the changing risk profile in students from when they're leaving India to start a graduate school program here, and the first day of work at a U.S. sponsoring institution. Second, we'll take advantage of the much lower cost of capital in the United States when compared to India, with a much higher inflation rate. And these loans will be incredibly attractive to Indian graduate students for 3 reasons. First, obviously it's going to reduce their interest rate, saving them money. Just as important, it's going to hedge their currency risk. It's going to allow them to match the income that they're making in dollars with the income that, or with the interest payments that they're making in rupees. And third, and surprisingly just as important, it's going to allow them to begin to build a credit history in the United States, which is important to these students as they want to build ties in this country and eventually own a home. Now, this offering is also going to be very attractive to investors. It's going to offer a relatively uncorrelated new niche asset and one that's exciting for them to tell their neighbors that they're invested in. And for all of that, we're going to offer an extremely attractive rate of return. There are about 65,000 Indian graduate students in the United States. Just among the top 50 MBA programs, we estimate that there's about 1,200 Indian graduate students. Now, we did a poll of Cox International students and found that over half of them have more than $20,000 or more in loans in India. We estimate that just within those top 50 MBA programs, there's more than $10 million in loans that are accruing each and every year. Now, while we think that the number of loans or the amount of loans for computer science and engineering students are probably a little bit lower because tuition is lower, the overall market in the Indian graduate student loans is likely many times in excess of that. We think we built a custom-built team to compete in this space. Myself, I'm Eric Poole. I'm a former AmLaw 100 attorney where I represented private equity funds from fund formation to liquidation and everywhere in between. I also closed numerous credit facilities for my firms, as well as helped to create the standard loan documents for Commerce Bank as they moved into Virginia and the District of Columbia. And my responsibilities will be risk management. I'll make sure that we're complying with securities laws as we form the corporation. I will help draft the form loan documents and make sure that when we close these loans, we dot every I and cross every T. We also have Chase Lafferty. Chase has experience working in both Merrill Lynch's private investment arm as well as J.P. Morgan's private bank. And what Chase is responsible for doing is he is our point man in investor relations and targeting and pitching to high net worth individuals to create the commitments that we need for this project to succeed. Finally, we have Abhinandan Kawari, who is an international student here at Cox with loans in India and who wishes to work here in the United States after graduation. He's also a former team leader at HCL Technologies, one of the world's foremost IT consulting firms, as well as the vice president of Cox's International Club, and you'll see how important that is in a second. Abhinandan will be responsible for our marketing and our communications and driving loan applications from international students here in the United States. So how do these loans work? Our loans to Indian graduate students will be at about 8 to 10% interest rates for 3-year terms, which matches the HB1 visa period. We're also lucky in that they've already, because we're taking out loans that are already existing, the Indian bank in India has already done all the legwork for us. So we will transfer their guarantors and other pledges onto our loans to continue the incentive for them to continue paying on our loans in the event that something happens to them and they have to switch jobs or move back to India. Now, our application deadline will be April 1st prior to their graduation. And at this time, we'll screen screen each candidate for the type of employer that they're working for. We prefer very large, established companies with very little risk of high turnover. We'll also look at their prior employment history, their grades, the schools they went to ensure that we're only investing in the brightest and best of Indian graduate students in the United States. And starting in May, we will fund, as they begin, starting on their first day of work after proving to us that they have both U.S. sponsorship as well as have started work, we'll fund their loans until our fund commitment is finished. So how will we drive applications?
Good afternoon, everyone. Our marketing and sales plan is very straightforward, and I, being an international student who has an education loan from India, can assure you that it will prove to be very effective as well. To begin with, we intend to form partnerships with international clubs at our target schools, and the good news is that each one of them has an active international club. We will be capitalizing on their vision, part of that which is to pass on any information that might be useful for their members. And so we'll be going with the idea that using some modes of communication like their club websites or emails to reach out to the students there and try to educate them about our services that we have to offer. We also then intend to have student representatives at each one of our target schools. These student representatives will in fact be like our sales representatives, if you will, who will be there to help us coordinate events at school and help address any questions that our applicants might have. We then intend to have information sessions at our target schools. To begin with, we plan to go to schools, big schools like MIT, Howard in Boston, and NYU in New York. These schools have close to 800 students, almost half of them are internationals, and more than half of those are Indians. So we'll be going at these schools and while working closely with the international clubs there, trying to conduct information sessions, trying to educate them and let them know about how we can help them save money and make some smart decisions. These information sessions will also help us build our client base. We will be meeting our potential customers there and future potential customers who will be able to work with us once their career opportunities look good. With that, I'll Eric.
As I mentioned before, there is no current player, U.S. player, lending money to international students in the United States. And we think that that's likely to continue for the foreseeable future. In India, the expected inflation rate is expected to remain relatively elevated. So we don't think in the next few years that initial student loans will go down enough to choke off a takeout lender's role. Similarly, U.S. banks, they're getting healthier, but we don't think that they're quite ready in the situation to enter into a very small niche market at this point in time. Now, we could see competition in other smaller investment vehicles like us, other smaller private equity funds, but we think that we'll be able to successfully compete with them because we'll have a same or just as low cost of capital. We'll have additional time to prove the underwriting so that when we go to a bank or an investor, we're going to show have much better default data and be able to maintain our lower cost of capital. And we're also going to be a first mover into these international clubs, which are going to be the key driver of traffic, both through word of mouth and just through very cheap ways to reach these customers. And so even if a new lender comes in later, I think with our relationships and the trust that we've built with our clients, we're going to be able to maintain that lead. We also think that we can rapidly grow this business. Our goal for this year is to secure $1 million in equity commitments and $400,000 in debt commitments to have a total of $1.4 million in investments by April of 2011, so that we can fund loans next year. And I think that once we fund our loans and build a client base with default data and other information, we'll be able to rapidly increase the amount of funds under management to $50 million by year 5. $25 million in equity and $25 million in debt as we were able to increase the leverage of our funds. And what this will result in is $500,000 in net income before taxes that year. But we also think that at that time we're going to be very attractive to a number of organizations, particularly banks and other financial institutions that are extremely interested in these small niche products that private bank clients are interested in. Much like Goldman Sachs recently made an investment in Facebook so that they could offer this type of investment to their private bank clients, we think that they're similarly going to be interested in us as well. We're also going to see demand from other private equity funds that will want to acquire our portfolio and bring it into their fund. Now, having said all that, our capital requirements to get started are extremely low. We're an information-based company. All we need is $65,000 to get started, and we're hoping to get that from you guys here today. I'd now like to open the floor to any questions. Yes, sir.
Can I ask you why you selected just Indian nationals as opposed to... I was going to ask you why you selected Indian nationals as opposed to national students from other countries.
Sure. Well, it's easy to answer that question when you exclude Chinese students, and we'll get back to Chinese students. But the other students, the scale is just not there. It does take a substantial amount of legal knowledge and just other knowledge to know, to mitigate that risk of what happens when they lose their job and they move back. Now, there is a similarly large body of Chinese international students, but for whatever reason, they don't have, the interest rates are a little bit lower, and they don't have the sheer amounts of debt that the Indian student body does.
So you think this is a particular, this is very unique to the Indian students?
Yes, and I think that by focusing our efforts on just Indians, we're going to be able to build that relationship with the international club and know that we're just here, when we communicate, we're just here for you and to build that word of mouth going forward.
Sure, it's an interesting idea. I hadn't really thought much about this financial services market, but and I'm rooting for it because I'm a UVA guy myself. So
great.
You're winning $65,000.
Yeah. No. But when you think if you think about your business competing for capital against a bunch of other startups, really high-tech startups to financial services like yourselves, so what's the target investor when you think about a niche opportunity like this? At the end of the day, it is a niche.
Sure.
Well, how are you going to articulate sort of that risk return profile for someone who says, hey, this is why you want to invest in extending our funds under management, and this is what you can expect to get in return. Because when I went through the plan, it wasn't very clear.
The lowest hanging fruit we found as we've talked to people about this plan is the former Indian, not necessarily international students, but we talked with a partner at JP Morgan who came over from India and had the same problems that these students had, that when he went to apply for a car, even though it was his first job, he had a great income, they wouldn't lend him money because he had no credit history. And you know, I think that we can easily pitch the situations that these students are in to these people, and at the same time they have, they want to help. We're offering an 8 to 10% rate of interest, and at the same time we're helping these students as they acclimate to the United States. And I think it's a very strong draw, not just to the former Indian nationals, but everybody. I think that we can effectively compete for capital.
So great job, Berlin, by the way.
Thank you.
So my question, not to get too much into weeds here, but have you guys, it's a little unclear to me how you're structuring this. Are you structuring this as just a company that has ongoing operations, or have you thought about structuring this with annual funds that have different tranches of money in?
Yes, sir. It would be annual funds with tranches. So you lock in money for 3 years. You'd have your one loan pool accrue and then pay down over those 3 years, and then so we'd launch a new fund every year.
And so what you kind of ran through it, but what is the total market size do you think is available here? So in kind of dreamland, if you could 5 years from now control the market, how big of a fund would you have?
Realistically, I don't think that it's, there's, for whatever, some students just won't refinance, but I think that the total market realistically is $50 to $75 million each year. And so with a 3-year portfolio, call it $125 million in portfolio at any one time.
curious on the default rates. I think I read a little bit in your business plan, and could you tell us a little bit more about
Sure.
the peculiar?
To be honest, nobody is lending to these students as it is, so actual default rates are going to be hard to find. We estimated 3%, which is the peak of auto loan defaults in 2008, 2009. We kind of judged these loans as kind of being on the same risk level. You have to remember that these students are going to be graduates from SMU, Harvard, et cetera, making $80,000 a year, $90,000, $100,000 on a $20,000 loan. And we're also going to have started employment. So we judged that the average risk to be about the same as a car loan, a little bit not as risky as a credit card loan, not necessarily as risky as a straight personal loan, because we're going to have guarantees with the parent or other relative, but certainly more risky than a residential loan.
Good job. That's all from me.
Okay. Thank you very much.